Part 66. The Brave Life of a Space Peasant Girl. Author, Lan Department. Chapter 651. Chapter 651 Soul Clan. So, this thing is very precious and precious in this world of gods. Yuan was unwilling to give up and did not want to return without success. She sat on the ground, looking at the direction where the giant left. She wanted to wait until her last breath before leaving. After all, the agreed time was today, and today had not happened. The giant didn't come. What if we encountered a difficult situation and couldn't leave? Perhaps he is injured. Or perhaps it has fallen. Anyway, these are the possibilities. Yuan was just thinking wildly there. After a while, when he didn't come, she went to look for him. Let's see what's going on. On the other side, the giant returned to his tribe. There was no one there for a long time and it was in ruins. The giant, no, should be called Arthur. He is the young patriarch of the giant clan. Back then, other gods coveted the divine eyes of their giant clan and invaded them. As a last resort, his father sent all 4 of his brothers and sisters out of the 5 elements realm. Originally, the giants were a large clan, but because they had been killed for a long time to poach their divine eyes, the number of giants became smaller and smaller. In addition, the giants not only have divine eyes, they are also a special group with infinite strength. This makes people even more concerned about it. As long as you refine the divine body and divine eyes, you can still get the divine body and divine eyes of the giants. Although it is not as good as the original special divine body of the giants, it is still 80% achievable. So, the giants have become a favorite in the god realm, and there will always be people who come to steal them. There were originally a group of 100 million, but there were still a few thousand people left at that time, but now he is the only one left. Arthur looked at the ruins in front of him and was so angry that he couldn't help himself. His figure disappeared here in a flash. His eyes swept over here, and there was nothing here. The Soul Tribe, this tribe is similar to the people from the Soul Realm in Tianxia Realm. They have the same spiritual power and soul power, and they are a race that has experienced harm. They are already very experienced in the God realm and have a place in the God realm, but they are not satisfied. They want to be stronger and one day be able to bring down the Lord God. So they had targeted the giants a long time ago. It was the Soul Clan who invaded in large numbers and wiped out the giants. In addition, they not only plundered the giants, but also races with special magical skills like the God-eared tribe. It's just that the God's ears tribe can hear things that others can't. When they hear someone's thoughts on them, they have long since retired from the world. At present, the number of people in the Soul Clan who have the abilities of the giant clan accounts for 2%. The Soul Clan is a large clan, with 200 million people. Think about it, how many people from the giant clan have died in their hands? The Soul Clan has these functions. It's not that no one comes to try their best, but most of them return in vain, and the rest remain in the Soul Clan forever. Arthur came to a place not far from a soul city. He looked at the people in the city with great anger. Some people actually maintained the physique of the giants and were still suffering in the city. He really wanted to rush up and kill the person. Someone is peeping over there. The defenders found Arthur who had revealed the murder. You two go and catch it. Another one, who seemed to be the boss, urged. Whoever dares to act wild at the door of the Soul Clan really doesn't want to hang out in the God realm. Yes. The 2 guards wearing divine armor caught up with Arthur in the blink of an eye. Arthur knew that he had alerted someone, so he ran away quickly. Is it the giants? The people chasing behind him saw the speed of Arthur's escape and the aura of the giants. The spirit souls of the Soul Tribe have the strongest sense of smell, and they can identify it as soon as they smell it. Yes, haven't all the giants been wiped out? Why is there still one fish that slipped through the net? Let's go back and report quickly. Good. The two guards went back immediately and told the leader at the city gate what had happened. As soon as the leader heard that they were giants, he did not dare to delay and immediately reported to the city lord. The city lord is a person who has refined the giant race. He immediately sent a large number of people out to look for Arthur. The giant race has been destroyed, and there are no more giants to be found. He wants to find a giant for his son, but he can't. He didn't expect that there would be another one. He was overjoyed and rewarded the person who came to repay the favor. The leader happily received the reward and went back and divided it with the two men. Of course, he got the big one. Let's say that after Arthur escaped tens of thousands of miles in one breath, he knew that it would be difficult for him to escape if he alerted the Soul clan. He was angry and sad. He didn't take revenge and even got himself involved. Now that his cultivation level is neither low nor high, how can he be the opponent of the Kwanhun clan? He was annoyed at why he couldn't keep calm. Had he known this, he wouldn't have come back. He wanted to find Yuan, but unfortunately she couldn't be waiting for him at the same place and in the God realm. She would only appear when the time was up. This is still early before the agreed time. What should we do now? Just when Arthur was feeling sad, the Soul Tribe people had already chased him and surrounded him. I advise you not to resist. The man of God quickly immobilized his soul and said to him sternly. Arthur smiled bitterly, how can I resist? You know what I'm doing, and I'll save you the pain by being so obedient. The man of God threw out a magic rope and tied the man directly. He carried Arthur back to the city and handed the man to the city lord. The city lord was very happy and rewarded his subordinates generously before taking Arthur to his son's training place. Where is the young city lord? When the lord of the city arrived, his son was not there. A servant said, go back to the city lord, the young city lord has gone out. He said he will come back after finishing the matter. Remember, the young city lord will know the city lord when he comes back. The city lord was a little angry, and his son didn't even say a word to him when he went out. Yes, the servant replied tremblingly. The city lord went back angrily and imprisoned Arthur. Yuan waited until her son arrived, but Arthur was not coming. She ducked into the space, suppressed the anger in her heart, and let Xiaja search. She wanted to find Arthur and see why he let her go. Xiaja is familiar with Arthur's aura. Isn't it easy to find him? It didn't take long to find the imprisoned Arthur. Master, look, Xiaja shouted. Found it so quickly. As Yuan spoke, she looked around and saw Arthur sleeping in a room. The room was surrounded by restrictions. He was obviously captured and imprisoned here. Yuan sighed, the unhappiness he felt about letting her go has disappeared now. As soon as her consciousness moved, Arthur appeared in the space. Yuan checked him and found that his soul was imprisoned. Yuan quickly solved this restriction for him. After the release, Arthur woke up. He sat up and looked at the person in front of him who was releasing him. The person who saved him turned out to be Yuan. He opened his mouth not knowing what to say, and finally said, "Thank you." Yuan waved her hand, looking at his hopeless look, and asked him, "What's going on with you? Why were you arrested?" Arthur said, "My name is Arthur. I am a member of the giant tribe, not a barbarian in that world. I returned to my tribe that day." End of this chapter. The Brave Life of a Space Peasant Girl. Author, Lan Department. Chapter 652. Chapter 652. Arthur recognizes his master. Arthur told in detail what happened after he returned that day. Soul Clan. Yuan took a breath. She knows the people of the Soul Clan too well. The Soul Clan can be regarded as a dominant level existence in the world of immortal cultivation. Even the immortal world knows how to separate the soul cultivators. How can the God realm be mixed together? If this continues, sooner or later the God realm will be ruled by the Soul Clan. Then what do you plan to do in the future? Yuan sympathized with him. I owe you a pair of divine eyes. If you don't mind, I'll give you my divine eyes. It's cheaper for others to keep it, so it's better to give it to you, Arthur said lightly. Yuan rolled her eyes at him. How could she want him? I don't want your eyes, it's so scary. You owe me what you owe me. Find a way to pay me back. Haha, do you think I can still repay you like this? Arthur smiled bitterly. Yuan patted him. Don't be discouraged. You are still alive. As long as people don't die, revenge can be avenged sooner or later. If you have no place to go, just stay here with me for the time being. Arthur was stunned for a moment. Are you willing to take me in? He really has nowhere to go now, and he will die if he goes out. Of course, but you have to keep my secret, let alone have any thoughts that you shouldn't have. If you have evil intentions, you should know that I have the ability to kill you, Yuan said seriously. Arthur did not feel that Yuan's words were excessive at all, but was somewhat moved by her behavior. They are not even acquaintances, they can only be regarded as a transactional relationship, and now this transaction is gone. Now it even saved his life. No matter what her purpose was in saving him, she just saved his life. Arthur's eyes moved. He looked at the space, and with a flash of consciousness, a drop of blood flew out of his chest. He quickly performed complicated moves. When the final seal was completed, he pointed his finger, and the final seal was struck on the essence and blood, and then he said, with my blood, with my soul, we make a contract. Whoops! Suddenly the drop of blood flew into Yuan's sea of knowledge. It's a deal, Arthur shouted lightly. The whole process only lasted 10 breaths. Yuan's mouth was wide open. She didn't know what Arthur was going to do. When the drop of his essence and blood flew into her sea of consciousness and submerged into her soul, the moment the contract was completed, only then did she learn that Arthur had signed a master-servant contract with her. She is the master and he is the servant. Arthur has seen his master. Arthur knelt on his knees and bowed to worship. Huh, get up. Yuan was still a little confused. She didn't expect that Arthur would recognize her as his master. Of course, when Arthur made the contract, Yuan was not worried that Arthur would contract her to become his slave. That is impossible. The space has the function of automatically protecting the owner and can break the contract. Otherwise, how could she let the essence and blood sink into her soul? Without her permission, how can the little crown on the soul let the essence and blood enter? Arthur thanked her and stood up, standing respectfully. Then, you can live in the space from now on and get familiar with it. First we will discuss what to do with your affairs in a few days. Yuan took a deep breath to calm down and said, now that she is the master, the situation is different. We have to wait until Mujukan comes out of the gate to discuss it? Yes, thank you, master. You don't have to be so polite. You can go find Little Snake and the others. Arthur nodded. Yuan returned to the wooden house and sat for a while, then came to Mujukan with a sudden movement of consciousness. Mujukan sensed her and pulled her into his arms with his long arm. Waner misses her husband. I have something to do with you. Yuan took his hand away. Mujukan locked her in his arms with a little force. Finally Waner threw herself into her arms. How could he miss the opportunity? Yuan had no choice but to let him take what he wanted. They had been married for tens of thousands of years, and she still didn't know his temperament. He must be fed, otherwise. After all this, Yuan was so sleepy that she simply fell asleep in Mujukan's arms. After sleeping for 2 days and 2 nights, Yuan woke up feeling refreshed. Mujukan was not there for a long time. When she took a look with her consciousness, she saw him and Arthur playing chess under the Enlightenment tea. Yuan smiled, put on her clothes, and ducked to Mujukan's side. You're up, why don't you sleep a little longer? Mujukan stretched out a hand to hold her hand and said. Yuan glanced at him. How could any immortal still sleep? She would only take a nap every time. However, This time it seems that the immortal power in the body has increased a little. Mujukan put down the chess piece, looked at Yuan and said, "Is what you want to say about him?" Yeah, Yuan nodded. "What does Wanner want to do?" "I am his master, so of course I help him avenge and complain." Arthur looked at her in surprise when he heard what she said. She said she would help him avenge her, and she said discussing it was to avenge him. Arthur's heart was touched. It's just that the Soul Clan is so strong that in the god realm, even the main gods will give way to them. It's not something that little immortals like them can defeat. Arthur took a deep breath. How could this be allowed? He couldn't let them die. Immediately he raised his hand and said, "Master, there is no need to avenge the slave, the Soul Clan is not something we can move at the moment." Yuan looked back at him. "Are you looking down on your master?" "Ah. No, no." Arthur didn't quite believe it. Would the master really help him get revenge? It's not that he looked down upon him, but with their two cultivations and the spiritual pets in the space, it was impossible to kill a Soul Clan god. In fact, he has never thought about asking his master to avenge him, unless their cultivation becomes a god. With the current level of cultivation, it will be many years before he can become a god. So, now he wants to practice hard and wait until he has the strength to talk about revenge. The life of the man of God is infinite, and he can afford to wait. Yuan knew what he was thinking, but she didn't say anything, and pulled Mujukan back to the wooden house. "The slaves you took don't believe in your strength," Mujukan joked. "If you don't believe it, don't believe it. There is no space or small world, and I don't believe in myself," Yuan hummed twice. Arthur didn't believe her. It just so happened that there were some things he didn't know that were exactly what she wanted. She looked at the soul flower in the space with her consciousness. These days, she had been feeding it with soul stones. When she came here, she met another soul clan. There must be a treasure in that clan that allows the soul flower to advance. "Okay, if you want to do something, don't leave any space." Mujukan pinched her face, looked at her angry look, smiled lovingly, and kissed her on the lips. Yuan nodded. Without the divine eye and wanting to avenge Arthur, she would definitely stick to her old method of robbing. "Let's talk about it after plundering all the Soul Clan." Yuan came to the training room alone and immediately controlled the small world. He first checked the entire Soul Clan and tried to do it at once. End of this chapter. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. The Brave Life of a Space Peasant Girl. Author, Lan Department. Chapter 653. Chapter 653 Advanced Divine Soul Vein. This look really made Yuan smile so hard that she couldn't even see her teeth. The Soul Clan is too big, almost as big as the Soul World of Tianxia World. Moreover, there is a high-level Soul Stone Vein beneath the Soul Clan's clan, and it is also a God-level Soul Vein. Yuanxing was prepared. She thought that after receiving the Divine Soul Vein into the space and merging it with the previous one, it must be a high-level Divine Soul Vein. In the future, they will not have to worry about insufficient soul power when cultivating their souls. Furthermore, without this high-level Divine Soul Vein, the Soul Clan will surely gradually decline. Will they still dare to go around and plunder? Unsure, there will probably be countless people seeking revenge from them at that time. Let's just do it. Anyway, it's not complete until something happens in every field. Of course, before moving the Divine Soul Veins, Yuan moved the Divine Soul Medicine Garden on the mountain in first. That medicine garden is not small, covering hundreds of acres. The space on the Hun Mountain cannot be accommodated. It exceeds the scope of the Hun Mountain and is spread on other mountains. Seeing this, Yuan quickly moved the soul vein in. As soon as he entered the space, the two soul veins quickly merged, eventually becoming a high-level Divine Soul Vein. Compared to the previous high-level soul veins, the soul power is much stronger. But if you want to reach the top level of divine soul veins, it is too far away. You need 10 high-level divine soul veins to upgrade to the top level of divine soul veins. However, this is enough for him to practice, and she is not greedy. Yuan watched the changes in the divine soul veins in the space. Outside, the Soul Clan is in chaos. The ancestors of the Soul Clan all flew out and looked at the empty medicine garden and soul veins. Several ancestors were so angry that they vomited out mouthfuls of blood. Ancestor! The people below flew towards the ancestor. Everyone looked at them in disbelief as their soul veins were still there in the previous breath, and then there was nothing in the next breath. I didn't know what to do. Seeing the ancestors vomiting blood in anger, the tribesmen became even more panicked. If their ancestors had some shortcomings, the fate of their soul clan would be obvious. The most powerful ancestor of the Soul Clan, Emperor Ling Xiao, stood in the air and glared at the entire Soul Clan. He said to the agitated tribesmen, "Quiet, don't panic, we are fine." The Soul Clan members stopped and waited for what the ancestor would do next. Ling Xiao's spiritual consciousness scanned around and found that the clan protection formation was in good condition and had not been damaged at all. He couldn't understand who had the ability to take away both the medicine garden and the divine veins. But what is certain is that the person who came has a good background, and the strength of that person's soul is definitely not lower than his. The other person must still have life space, and that thing cannot be stored in a storage space. He looked at the various appearances of the tribesmen, and thought to himself, he was afraid that the tribesmen had been plundering other people's magical skills for a long time, and someone would come to take revenge on them. The people of the Soul Clan have a history of plundering for millions of years. There are countless people who want to take revenge. It is not surprising that they have done so. The God realm is originally a world where strength is respected and the weak eat the strong. Today you are strong and I will be strong tomorrow. You rob me and I will rob you. It's just that now the soul vein that his soul clan relies on for survival is gone. In the future, the overall strength of the soul clan will plummet, and the soul clan will gradually decline. At that time, just wait for others to share the food. When he thought about the fate of the soul clan, the anger in Ling Xiao's heart felt like a lump in his throat, unable to come up or go down. "Ling Yun," he shouted. Ling Yun is the current leader of the Soul Clan and a godly cultivator. When he heard his ancestors shout, he quickly went over. "Ancestor! Listen, please quickly search for the soul vein and bring it back to inject it also. The news of the soul vein's disappearance is not allowed to be leaked from now on, all tribesmen are no longer allowed to plunder." Yung Xiao quickly ordered remedial measures. Although it was too late to restrain the tribesmen, they could not continue. If this continues, it will lead to the catastrophe of genocide. In the future, the Soul Clan will not be able to behave like this again. "Yes, ancestor." After Ling Yun saluted, he quickly went back to summon the 10 elders of the Soul Clan and issued orders one after another. The Soul Clan has 100 cities. When the Lord of Asana City received the order, he was puzzled as to why the clan would issue such a ban. Thinking of Arthur, who was captured just a few days ago, should he let him go or not? Thinking that this was the last giant, the city lord had a sullen face, and there was no way he would let him go. He ducked to the place of detention and had to move the giants to a place where they would not be discovered. Once he is found to have violated the order, he will be severely punished. The rules of the Soul Clan are very strict. If you violate the rules, you will live and die. "Huh, where are the people?" the city lord muttered, looking at the empty room. "He is obviously locked up here." He glanced at the ban. The ban was fine, but the person was missing. It was really a ghost. He has placed Arthur's soul restriction on him again, but Arthur himself can't undo his restriction at all. If people just disappear out of thin air, that's not a ghost. The city lord's back felt cold. It's not that he is really afraid of ghosts. How can a be afraid of ghost cultivators? Who could even ignore his prohibitions and rescue people out of thin air? Except for people with divine eyes, there is no one in this world who can save people without breaking the restrictions. If it was done by the giants and they could rescue people from the city lord's mansion without anyone noticing, then the opponent would be very powerful. The city lord returned to the main hall of the city lord's mansion, sitting in a chair in a daze, pressing his eyebrows with his hands, thinking in his mind whether he should report this matter to the tribe and tell the tribe that a powerful giant might appear. After thinking for a long time, the city lord decided not to retaliate. After all, except for the missing person, he had nothing to lose. But the defense must be strengthened. In the space, Yuan could guess what was going on outside. She was currently in the soul medicine field. The soul medicine in it made her laugh so hard that her teeth almost fell out. They are all cherished old soul medicines. There is an acre of soul flowers, and each plant is stronger and older than the one she had before. I really found a treasure this time. After reading the soul medicine, Yuan took Mujukan to Soul Mountain to experience the strong soul power. How about it? The Soul Clan got this, Mujukan asked, looking at the large medicine garden and the Soul Mountain. That is, whoever allows them to possess incredible magical skills will cause harm to others. Have you not seen that in the Soul Clan, there are many people with various magical skills and all kinds of weird shapes? Yuan said angrily, some people refine monks without being able to tell, and some people actually refine divine beasts, which really turn into monsters that are neither human nor beast. Maybe it's because the bodies of humans and animals can't blend together. Some people have horns on their heads, some people have deformed facial features, some people have deformed limbs, some people have wings on their backs, and some people have scales on their skin. Yuan really didn't expect that the people of the Soul Clan could be so heartbroken and crazy. Mujukan didn't say anything. He rubbed Yuan's head. As long as she was happy, she could do whatever she wanted. He only cares about her well-being and whether she is happy or not. End of this chapter. The Brave Life of a Space Peasant Girl. Author, Lan Department. Chapter 654. Chapter 654 Space Changes. Let's practice here for a while, Mujukan said. Okay, I asked you to come here just to practice. We should be able to advance to the first level. Yuan nodded. The two of them sat cross-legged on the mountain and began to cultivate their souls. The corners of Arthur's mouth rose after realizing the Tao Te. He was such an incredible master that he actually moved the Soul Clan's medicine garden and soul vein. At this moment, Arthur's mood could only be expressed in one word: great. I haven't been in such a good mood for a long time. He looked at the enlightenment tea tree, and he gently input some divine power into the roots of the tree. I saw that the roots of Wudaoka gradually became thicker, and then the tree trunk. After 1 cup of tea, the enlightenment tea tree changed. The tree becomes taller and thicker, its leaves become more green, and it faintly exudes a divine power. Arthur smiled. This enlightenment tea tree will soon be transformed into a divine tea by him. He has nothing to repay, so just do what he can. So, Arthur started to renovate the space without any problem, and the space changed drastically within a month. Yuan and Mujukan were on the Soul Mountain. It was not until the divine soul skill broke through to the 7th level that they consolidated their cultivation and went down the mountain. Yuan was surprised to see the big change in the space. Her little wooden house actually turned into a small palace, and her training room and alchemy room were all in her small palace. It turned out that the dining table in front of the cabin was gone, and a 5-acre garden was built there. The garden was full of flowers of various colors, and there were so many beautiful flowers that we didn't want them. In the middle of the garden is a 1-acre lake with an octagonal pavilion in the lake. In the pavilion is a set of tables and chairs. The attic where Mujukan used to refine his food has been turned into a magnificent palace. The treasure pavilion has also been replaced with artifacts. Even the Enlightenment Tea has become a sacred tree. A fence has been built around the Enlightenment Tea, and it is also filled with various flowers. The fragrance of the flowers is overflowing, and it does not conflict with the Enlightenment Tea at all. It's organized like this, beautiful and rich, not messy like before. Yuan suddenly realized what she was doing, came to Arthur, and patted him on the shoulder. "Thank you." Arthur smiled at him. "As long as the master doesn't dislike it, it's fine if you don't blame Arthur for taking action privately. He thought that women generally like beautiful things. If the place where they live is made more beautiful, the master will like it. No wonder, it's so beautiful, how can I dislike it?" It's too late to thank him. What woman doesn't like her nest to be beautiful? Mujukin was not happy. With a dark face, he glared at Arthur with his knife. His daughter-in-law, he doesn't know how to please her. His wife's space was beautifully decorated by him. Let an outsider show his courtesy here. What a beeping dog. Arthur felt Mujukin's glare and touched his nose. He seemed to ignore him. The man who is the master will suffer disaster now. He smiled and walked away. "If you don't dodge, you will be cut down." Arthur suddenly disappeared, and Yuan turned around to see Mujukin with a dark face. Yuan held her forehead, this jealous jar. She walked up to him, kissed him, and warned, "It's very beautiful, don't destroy it." If she didn't say anything, this thing would have to be destroyed. No, Mujukin hugged the person in his arms and gritted his teeth. Not now, but in the future. He didn't touch the things in the space before. He didn't like to mess with his wife's things. It didn't mean that he didn't love her. Had he known that his wife liked such fancy things, he would have done it long ago. Yuan rubbed his face and started exploring the space. After finishing it, Yuan discovered a problem, that is, Arthur ignored the restrictions in the space. The soul tree in the red earth also allowed him to transform into a sacred tree, as well as the black pool. Yuan really saw the evil methods of gods and men. Such a dangerous method reminded her that she must be careful when facing the man of God in the future. The man of God is a man of God, and he is not as easy to fool as she thought. If she didn't have space and a realm gate, in the eyes of gods and men, she would be worse than shit. It's no wonder so many people want to get her realm gate. Luckily, Arthur recognized her as his master. At that time, she thought it was not necessary, but now that she thinks about it, it is very necessary. Arthur must have understood that these two things would bring him trouble sooner or later, so he simply accepted her as his master. Firstly, he can live here for a long time, and secondly, he can live here with peace of mind. Yuan admired Arthur's cleverness. After reading the space, Yuan is now looking at the Soul Clan in the Realm Gate. The Soul Clan is very calm now. As usual, it can't be seen that the Soul Clan has lost anything. But she could keep her composure, and Yuan exclaimed, "A strong tribe is a strong tribe." The roots of the clan are gone, and the situation is not in disarray. But Yuan really admired how they could be so calm about what she did next. She attacked the city lord who had captured Arthur, and immediately robbed everything from the city lord's mansion. After her star soul art was promoted, there was almost no space fluctuation, and those people were even less aware of it. She was thinking that when Star Soul Ju reached the 9th level, she would definitely steal all of Tianya and Mingao. After raiding the city lord's mansion, Yuan returned to the Soul Clan's territory and robbed everyone there. Except for the ancestor, she couldn't get close to them, and she didn't let anyone else go. When she approached the ancestor immediately noticed that there was a spirit approaching, and immediately launched a spirit attack. Yuan almost suffered a disaster. Turning around and going to another city, she did not let go of those who she could tell had taken away the magical skills of the monks and divine beasts. One night, Yuan was done. She threw all the robbed things to Little Snake, Xiao Qing, and Arthur to sort them out. Then she left the Five Elements realm and returned to the Dongsha realm. Yuan was very cruel now. As soon as she left, the Soul Clan was completely in chaos. The first person to realize that the thing was lost was not the one with high cultivation level, but a member of the Soul Clan who had taken away the magical skills of the divine beast. He wanted to get something out of the space, but found that there was nothing. He hurriedly ran to tell the patriarch. Clan leader Ling Yun was practicing at the moment. He was very unhappy when his practice was interrupted at night. Having to deal with clan affairs during the day, I finally have some time to practice at night. Ling Yun looked at the panicked tribesman and said in a deep voice, "If you have anything to do, you have to come to my tribe leader late at night. Tell me quickly." The man said anxiously, "Clan leader, the kid's space ring has been lost." "If it's lost, it's lost. Why do you want to come to my clan leader? Is it possible that you need my clan leader to help you find it?" Ling Yun almost photographed this tribe of people. "I didn't lose it myself, kid." The man stretched out his hand and pointed at a finger and said, "The one worn here has disappeared inexplicably, and has lost contact." The space storage equipment of the Soul Clan members all have the mark of the soul, unlike other people who only have a simple blood test to identify the owner. End of this chapter. The Brave Life of a Space Peasant Girl. Author, Lan Department. Chapter 655. Chapter 655 Ling Xiao Measures. Their storage equipment can be locked according to the soul mark. Even if it is lost, it can be found quickly. Ling Yun subconsciously stretched out his hand and saw that mine was gone and his was gone. And he really couldn't sense the existence of his space ring, let alone where it was sensed. It's really like losing contact. This. Ling Yun stood up suddenly and was so shocked that he immediately broke into a cold sweat. When the tribesman saw the patriarch's appearance, he was also stunned on the spot. Is the patriarch's storage space also missing? It's really like seeing a ghost. This thing is too weird. Who doesn't know that if you want to take someone else's storage equipment, you must either voluntarily erase the soul mark and give it to him, or kill him to get his storage equipment. There is absolutely no such thing as taking things from a distance. Even though their soul clan has a powerful soul and special soul magic, they are not able to retrieve objects from across the air. The tribesman gasped. The person who took things from the air took his things, but not his head. Subconsciously, he touched his head. Just when the thoughts of the tribesmen were spinning 1,000 times, a few more people flew in from outside the hall, and they kept chattering. "Clan chief, patriarch, our space ring is missing," someone shouted. "You all come in." Ling Yun took a deep breath. People outside flocked in. As soon as they came in, they knelt on the ground and cried bitterly. That's all their wealth. If they have lost it, what will they use for cultivation in the future? Half an hour later, a city lord also came with people. An hour later, the elders of the clan, the clansmen, and the lords of all the cities came. Everyone is telling how they were robbed of the space ring inexplicably. I hope the clan can find a way to get it back. The space rings of so many people in the whole clan have disappeared, which adds up to a priceless fortune. Ling Yun looked at everyone talking non-stop, and he had a splitting headache. What is this all about? Haven't they ever thought about why so many people in the Soul Clan lost their space rings? Look at each of them, which one has not refined the magical skills of others or divine beasts? It's so hard to use your brain. He simply sat there and said nothing, as his ancestor took care of this matter. Sure enough, Ling Xiao from the clan saw the situation in the main hall, and he appeared in the main hall with a flash of consciousness. When the clan members who were chattering saw their ancestor coming, they all came forward to kowtow and tell stories with tears in their eyes. "Ancestor, you have to make the decision for your disciples, our property is just gone." "Ancestor, You want to help us find the thief who killed 1,000 people and cut his body into thousands of pieces. No, let him be completely destroyed and never be reincarnated. Why is it so abominable? Ancestor, how can we practice in the future? Ancestor, let's go back to our clan first. Ancestor, what should we do about this matter? Ling Xiao looked at the clansman in the hall, his brows furrowed tightly. He was sure that this was a deliberate revenge. When that man's spiritual consciousness came, his powerful spiritual consciousness could only detect a little bit. If he hadn't been so powerful, how could he have sensed it? Then he would have ended up like these tribesmen, losing all their belongings. The person who can take the belongings of many people through the air without killing them must have come through space magic. Of course, people in this realm don't know about the realm gate yet. But it is entirely possible to use space magic to retrieve objects from across the air. For example, in the past, the god of thieves used space magic to steal things. The words went too far, and Ling Xiao suddenly understood, yes, that person understands space magic, and it is not surprising that he has a life space. Those who refine life space must understand space magic, otherwise how can they depict space formations in space? He first took away the soul veins, then moved the medicine garden, and now he took the tribesmen's things. Next, would he take their lives? For the first time, Ling Xiao regretted allowing his tribe to plunder without limit, and now he finally tasted the feeling of being plundered. Now that the property has only been plundered, everyone is panicking like this. What if someone took your life away? Ling Xiao can finally understand the feeling of those whose lives were taken away and their clans were exterminated. Just what should we do now? It is absolutely impossible for that person to let go of the soul clan, and it is impossible for such a large soul clan to hide from the world. People know space magic, and I can find you even if I hide in hell. After contemplating for a long time, Ling Xiao finally spoke, the clan chiefs, elders, and city lords stay, while the rest go out and wait, and no noise is allowed. Just when the clan members were about to collapse, Ling Xiao spoke. All the clansmen immediately silenced themselves, those who should have left the main hall withdrew from the main hall, and those who should not have stepped forward and sat in front of Ling Xiao. As soon as the clan members retreated, the sound of needles dropping could be heard in the main hall. Ling Xiao waved his hand and put up a barrier. He looked at the 100 or so people. These were the elites and pillars of the Soul Clan. He said in a deep voice, "You must all know something. If something is lost, it is lost. Next time it will not be as simple as throwing something away. What I'm telling you is that this matter cannot be avoided. Please restrain your clansmen and prevent trouble from happening again. This time is a catastrophe that our soul tribe is facing, and we may be exterminated. I hope you can stabilize yourself at this time and don't get confused. No matter what, try to save your life. In addition, all clan members who know space magic must be mobilized to deploy prevention and control measures in the clan area and in each city to minimize losses. This is the best way at present. The people below have calmed down now. They are not newbies in cultivation. They know that their ancestor did not threaten everyone by saying this, but it is a fact. Now they have no choice but to accept their unknown fate. The opponent's magic is too powerful, try to preserve it. Everybody went out and left with their clansmen. Only Ling Yun and Ling Xiao were left in the hall. Ling Yun asked with a stern face, "Does the ancestor regret it?" In those days, refining other people's magical skills was used for one's own purposes. It was the refining technique created by the ancestors that made the clan members embark on the road of robbing families and homes. Ling Xiao sighed heavily, nodded and said, "I only have some regrets. What I regret most is that I didn't think that someone would use space magic to retaliate. It's too late to think of a way now." In his opinion, not everyone can practice space magic, and there are not even 5 people in the entire God realm who can practice it. His powerful soul clan has to be dealt with, which is something that can be easily dealt with. It's just that he never expected that such a powerful one would come here today. Ling Yun rolled his eyes, glanced at Ling Xiao, turned around and left the hall. I didn't expect that at this time, the ancestor would still be stubborn, unwilling to repent, and still thinking that there was no defense. He had stopped the clan members, and he had foreseen that the Soul clan would not know how to restrain themselves, and one day they would face the crisis of annihilation. But he is not the leader of the Soul clan after all. The real leaders of the Soul clan are the ancestors. End of this chapter. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. The Brave Life of a Space Peasant Girl. Author, Lan Department. Chapter 656. Chapter 656 Liu Liking Xinhuo. Yuan didn't know what people from the Soul clan would think or do. She was holding several things in her hands at the moment. The same thing is the refining method of the Soul clan. It turns out that they are different from the ordinary refining method in the world of cultivating immortals. What is popular in the world of immortality is to directly use your own spiritual power, immortal power, or divine power to refine the things you want to refine, and use the refined energy for your own use. While people from the Soul clan say it is refining, it is actually fusion. After merging with oneself, the magical skills obtained are much more powerful, but the sequelae are the same as those of the Soul clan. If the fusion is not good, or it does not fit with oneself, it will become like a human or a ghost. The other things are a few pairs of divine eyes and ears that have not yet been refined. These things were all found from the space rings of those soul tribesmen. Arthur brought these to her first. Before she got it, Yuan wanted to get it very much, but now that the thing was placed in front of her, she was hesitant. Mujukan saw her sitting on the ground in a daze for a long time. He walked over, picked up something and looked at it. Is there any problem, Waner? Yuan, I'm wondering whether to refine this thing. Yuan has always been careful about things that have been used, fearing that one mistake will ruin years of cultivation. These divine eyes and ears are indeed very attractive. After refining, they have 2 additional auxiliary functions. She is worried about the side effects. After all, this is not something you can acquire through self-cultivation. Her eyes moved, and she asked Arthur later if the divine eye was born or cultivated. Just when I was about to get up, I thought that I was probably born with it. If it was practiced, why didn't the people of the Soul clan use the techniques to practice? Why did they kill people and gouge out their eyes? After thinking about it, if she really succeeded through cultivation, Arthur would have given her the technique long ago. If you don't want to refine it, just don't refine it. Mujukan looked at her, sometimes frowning, sometimes relaxing. He patted her head and said, the Ning Xian eyes that Mr. Mu gave him back then still remain unrefined. Woolen cloth. I always feel that I can't stand it in my heart to be refining a pair of other people's eyes. Yuan glanced at him, nodded, and simply took Mujukan with her to see what treasures the Soul clan people had. Master, come here, take a look at this. As soon as they arrived, the little snake pulled her and handed Yuan a space ring. Yuan looked at it and saw a space of soul medicine. These are magic medicines, no wonder the little snake is so happy. She put it away and started to sort it out. While sorting it out, I clicked my tongue, there are too many good things. She took out some that were suitable for Tianyan and Yaoji to practice, and asked Xiaoxi and the others to put the others in the treasure pavilion. As for her, she returned from the realm gate to the Baisha realm divine realm palace. In the shrine, Yaoji is the only one present. Mom, where is Dad? Yuan looked around and saw that Tianyan was not there. Your father went to the far west, where the ground subsided. When my father sent you the broken pillar, it may have been damaged to the edge of the god realm. When Yaoji talks about Ming Ao, She is extremely reluctant to talk about him. Oh. Yuan nodded. She took out a space ring and put it in Yaoji's hand. This, you and Dad can use it to practice. What? Yaoji took the space ring and asked, looking at it, at their level of cultivation, what else can their daughter give them to practice with? When she finished reading the contents, Yaoji gave Yuan a surprise. Where did you go shopping? These things are not owned by immortals. Can you, a child, consider the mood of your parents? Yaoji was furious. This kid would get into trouble whenever he had time. If something happened, she and Tianyan would not be alive. Well, Yuan thought her mother would be happy after seeing it, but she didn't want to give her a beating. However, she felt very sweet in her heart. A child with a mother is a treasure. This is true everywhere. Mom, it's not in danger. Don't worry, you and Dad. How dare my daughter risk her life? Speaking, Yuan took out a pair of divine eyes and ears, as well as the refining jade slip. Mom, take a look at this, can you refine it? Yaoji took the thing suspiciously and looked at it immediately. Long time. Yaoji said, fortunately, you haven't refined it? There are some problems with this refining method, and this thing needs to be dealt with. Just wait for me, and I will take care of it for you. After hearing this, Yuan's eyes lit up, and she took out 10 more pairs and handed them to Yaoji. Mom, these are all, let's deal with them together. You keep 2 pairs. Yaoji didn't answer. She lowered her face and asked Yuan, tell me honestly, where do these things come from? You have to know that if you took them yourself, you will be responsible for the cause and effect. At first, Yuan was startled when she saw Yaoji change her face. After hearing this, she turned out to be worried about this. She took Yaoji's hand and smiled and said, Mom, my daughter robbed a soul tribe from the 5 elements realm. My daughter just can't see it. They were used to using abnormal means to plunder, so they robbed some people from the Soul clan. Yuan briefly and comprehensively explained what happened after rescuing Arthur. Yaoji took a deep breath. As long as her daughter didn't get it through extraordinary means, she was worried that the child would have a boundary and do things for nothing and violate morality. She said, so that's it? Then you wait. Yuan nodded, and as soon as Yaoji left, she stepped into the space and told Mujukan about the matter. Are you relieved now? Mujukan asked, holding her waist. Well, don't worry. Her mother has dealt with the things, so what is there to worry about? The two of them practiced in the space for several months before they came out. When they came out, Yaoji was already waiting for them. Mother Mujukan greeted. Yaoji nodded towards him, took out a small space ring and gave it to Yuan. You go and refine it, my mother will also go to refine it. She dealt with the remaining hostility and various auras. It was taken by the Soul Clan people with cruel methods, and it has a strong aura of violence on it. If it is not handled well, it will be difficult to refine and fuse, and during the fusion, the divine eyes and ears will still resist. Those who refine it cannot overcome the hostility. After the refinement is completed, the sequelae will appear immediately. This is where Yuan saw those strange-looking people from the Soul Clan. It can be hidden normally, but it becomes visible when it is used. The people from the Soul Clan will probably be able to deal with it, but they lack one thing, the glazed inner fire, which can be completely eliminated. Yaoji's natal fire is the clear heart fire of glass, which can remove hostility. Yuan took the things and returned to space with Mujukan. In the space, the two of them went to the practice room separately. In the training room, Yuan was the first to take out the divine eyes. The treated divine eye indeed has no red or gray dust on it, and is as clean as a pair of amber beads, very beautiful. Yuan took the refining jade slip and studied it, then remembered it, and then used her soul power to start refining. End of this chapter. The Brave Life of a Space Peasant Girl. Author, Lan Department. Chapter 657. Chapter 657 Refining. Yuan quickly performed the oral duel, and saw the two divine eyes like glass beads rotating regularly in her palms. While spinning, wisps of gas immediately floated out of the divine eyes and entered in her eyes. At the same time, Yuan's dark eyes gradually faded, covering them with a layer of pale gold. Yuan felt that her eyes were changing, as if the problem with her eyes was slowly being cured. Swelling, pain, and soreness are all beginning to disappear. Becoming very comfortable. As more gas was inhaled, Yuan's eyes turned pale gold, and then golden. Then it changed from gold to purple gold. Finally, it returns to black. This happens over and over again. At this time, the refining process cannot be paused or interrupted, and the inhaled gas cannot be even a little bit more or a little bit less. It can only continue like this until the refining is completed. Of course, Yuan will not be disturbed in her training room, as long as she ensures that her soul power is enough to refine the divine eye. Her soul is not strong enough, but there are a lot of soul stones for her to absorb. In the space rings of those from the soul tribe, there are countless soul stones collected, and there is no shortage of soul power. A month later, when the pair of divine eyes were gradually refined and shrunk, and finally all were refined, Yuan's black eyes were suddenly enveloped in purple light. Another day later, when the purple light completely disappeared, Yuan's eyes returned to normal. On the surface, she looked the same as before, but only Yuan knew the changes in her eyes. Yuan slowly opened her eyes. The moment she opened her eyes, the scene she passed by seemed to be a completely different world in her eyes. Every flower, every grass, every plant, every tree, can be seen much more clearly than the spiritual consciousness, and the structure of things can be seen clear at a glance. When looking at the boundary of the red earth, it is not just a pure white ball as seen by the divine eye. The divine eye can clearly see countless lines. Between the lines, where can the spiritual consciousness pass through and where is blocked? It's really clear at a glance. Such magical power made Yuan extremely happy. She wanted to experience the feeling of breaking the formation immediately. So she passed through the small world and found an uninhabited small world. She threw out the star formation and arranged several small formations. Then he looked with divine eyes. The formation appeared in her eyes like a network-like circle, like a three-dimensional figure. The lines, knots, and eyes of the formation are clearly visible to the eyes of the gods. If you want to break the formation, just aim at the eye of the formation. Haha, it's so amazing, Yuan secretly rejoiced in her heart. The refining technique of the Soul Clan was modified by Yaoji. It is the kind that is completely refined and then absorbed for practice, just like the soul absorbs the soul stone for practice. In other words, she can refine the divine eye again in the future to strengthen her eyes. Although they are not as powerful as the Soul Clan after fusion, they can only fuse one divine eye and cannot fuse a second divine eye again. Yuan's is different. She can refine and absorb the second pair, the third, to make her divine eyes more and more powerful. So powerful that the whole world is just a decoration in her eyes. Of course, she will be completely unrestricted in space from now on, and can see outside in space. As long as her divine eyes pass by, she can see everything without any hindrance. Thinking that there were 6 more in the space, Yuan put away the formation, used the boundary gate to quickly find Liang Bao and Xiaosong, and moved them into the space. Then he gave each of them a pair of divine eyes. What is this? Bao asked, looking at the divine eyes in the box. You'll know after you go to refine it. Dabao glanced at him. Don't be in a hurry to refine it. You should cultivate the soul first, Yuan said quickly. During the refining process, the higher the soul, the safer it is to refine it. She has experience with this. She has seen that Liang Bao's soul is still at the late 5th level, and Xiaosong's is even lower, still at the 3rd level. Such a low level of divine soul is not enough to refine a pair of divine eyes, and it cannot be stopped in the middle because the supply of soul power is insufficient. Once it is interrupted, it will be troublesome. By then, I don't know what my eyes will look like. Okay, mother, let's go practice first. The three of them were eager to try, and the things mother gave them were not ordinary things. Yuan nodded and moved them directly to the Soul Mountain. Anyway, the jade tube given to them contained her refining experience. As long as the soul is strong enough, there will be no problem. Huh? Mom, you moved your soul veins in again. The soul power is so strong. Liang Bao took a few sips of the thick soul power and became intoxicated. Yeah, hurry up and practice. It's best to practice to the 7th level before refining. Don't be impatient. The three of them nodded after hearing this, found their positions, crossed their legs and started practicing. Yuan saw that they were practicing, so she retreated and came to Mujukan's place. Mujukan saw Yuan coming, put down what he was holding, hugged her, and kissed her on the lips. Waner, this divine eye is so unbelievable. No wonder the Soul Tribe's people wiped out Arthur and the others. No one can withstand the temptation of this divine eye. Mujukan said sharply. Well, indeed, I still have 3 pairs. Should we continue refining them or give them to my grandfather and uncle? There are still unprocessed divine eyes in the treasure pavilion. When they are empty, I will ask my mother to help them deal with them. The people of the Soul Clan are really too ruthless. Some of them killed one giant clan and it was not enough. They killed several and left the rest with their godly eyes alone. I think they want to exchange it for cultivation resources. After all, he is a spiritual fellow practitioner and needs twice as many resources as others. Mujukan glanced at the space and saw that the 3 brats were already in the space. He said, Waner will leave 1 pair for her own cultivation, and give the other 2 pairs to Grandpa and the others. At present, it is enough for them to refine 1 pair. Okay, let's find them. After finding them, you still have to let them enter the space and cultivate their souls first. So Yuan took Mr. Mu and Mu Niangzhen into the space again, handed them things, and asked them to go to Soul Mountain to practice. As for Yu Heiran and the others, Yuan decided to forget it and did not give it to them again. There were too many of them, and if one of them was given, it would be unreasonable not to give to the others, and her eyesight was not enough. After finishing the matter, Yuan thought of a question, that is, why no one saw her when she went to the Soul Clan. She quickly came out with Mujukan and Arthur. She has thought about this issue since she clearly knew about the magical power of the divine eye. Waner wants to know if I can see your space. Yuan nodded, that's what she meant. If she could see it, wouldn't her space be clear to some people? Arthur smiled, Master, don't worry, you can't see it, and the divine eye is not omnipotent. Real. Yet Arthur nodded. End of this chapter. The Brave Life of a Space Peasant Girl. Author, Lan Department. Chapter 658. Chapter 658, Wangshen Mountain. Mujukan, I'll go in and you two will take a look. Yuan was still worried. Arthur smiled and Mujukan nodded. Yuan stepped into the space, and she looked at the 2 people in the space. There was no image of space in their eyes. And the 2 people outside really couldn't see Yuan's space. At this time, Yuan K stepped out again. How? I can't see it. It's like you disappeared from this world, and you can't catch a shadow at all, Mujukan said. In fact, Yuan's space is an independent space, and their divine eyes are not strong enough to see other worlds. Haha, I feel relieved now. Yuan looked at Arthur, who just smiled and said nothing. She patted him on the shoulder. I'm sorry, it's not that I don't believe you. Arthur smiled slightly at her. He was not so stingy, it doesn't matter. It's right to be cautious. Yuan smiled and patted him a few more times before the 3 of them entered the space. After returning to space, Yuan arrived at the shrine again. As soon as she arrived, Yaoji appeared in front of her. Yaoji pulled her to sit down with a smile on her face. Needless to say, she also experienced the heaven-defying magical power of the divine eye. Wire, this divine eye is really good. Your father is very happy. He went to repair the divine world. He said it is much more convenient to use this. Do you still want your mother? You still have your daughter. What else? Yaoji twitched her mouth, thinking she was a cabbage. Yuan nodded, took out a space ring from the space and put it in Yaoji's hand. There are really so many. Yaoji took a look and saw that there were at least 30 pairs of rings in the ring, and this time there were also divine ears, which were a little less than Chinese cabbage. She smiled and said, wait, mother will take care of it now. Well, mother, take your time, don't be in a hurry, I'll leave it here for now. Once it's taken care of, it doesn't matter if my parents can refine it again. It's not enough. The worst she can do is visit the Soul Clan again. I believe there are many more Soul Clan. As for the divine ear, she returned to space and went to refine it with Mujukan. Whether this is useful or not, once it is refined and placed there, it will always be used. 2 months after leaving the space, Mujukan and Yuan both came out of seclusion. They looked at each other and smiled, then returned to the fairy world and left the space. They entered a city and began to experience the magical power of the divine ear. Sure enough, they relaxed their minds and pricked up their ears. All kinds of sounds in the city entered their ears, and all the subtle sounds could not escape the divine ears. Sure enough, even the sound transmissions between the monks reached their ears. It starts with a range of 10 miles, then 100 miles, then 1,000 miles, and after 1,000 miles, it is no longer heard. The two of them laughed. Whoever will speak next will have no secrets in front of them. The two of them had a tacit understanding, nodded and left the city, flying towards a mountain called Wangshen Mountain. This is what they just heard from several monks. On Wangshen Mountain, a monk discovered an ancient monk cave, but it was restricted by formations and no one could enter. Looking at the holy mountain, it is said that a long time ago, many great powers from the immortal world lived on that mountain, saying that it was the closest place to the divine world. So many powerful beings who were about to ascend went to open caves and lived there, hoping to get some spiritual energy so that one day they could ascend to the divine realm. That mountain was named Wangshen Mountain. No one knows whether it is close to the god realm or not, but many of the monks who caused the heavenly calamity to ascend on that mountain were hacked to death. After a long time, everyone realized that it might be close here, but the thunder disaster was also more severe. Gradually, the number of people on Wangshen Mountain decreased, and finally there was no one left. After that, it became a place for monks to hunt for treasures. The two of them had a flying machine and flew to Wangshen Mountain one day later. Wangshen Mountain is located in the extreme east of the East Immortal Territory. The mountains are 10,000 feet tall. The top of Wangshen Mountain is the highest, about 1,000 miles long, and the tail is the lowest. The shape is like a giant dragon lying there with its head held high. At this time, there were already many monks on the mountain looking for him. The two of them looked around and saw that there were indeed many caves, but most of those caves were empty, with a few people living there. At the foot of the mountain, there are many monks gathered there. Listening to what those people are talking about, there is the ancient monk cave that cannot be opened. Let's go over and take a look, Yuan said. Good. After the two people flew by, they stood behind the crowd. This formation is an ancient formation, said a monk standing in front of the two people. Well, why did it take so long for it to be discovered? Asked a female fairy next to him. Junior sister, look there should be a hiding formation. This formation is revealed only when the hiding formation is broken. Oh, junior sister, how can I tell? It's not like senior brother doesn't know that junior sister doesn't understand formations, the female fairy said coquettishly. Yuan glanced at the female fairy and pulled Mujukan to change places. Yuan opened his eyes and saw that, as the immortal said, there was indeed a remnant of the hidden formation, and what was running inside was an ancient high-level killing formation. No wonder so many people just watch and dare not break the formation. However, in the eyes of the two of them, this calamitous formation was just that. They could tell their birthplace and walking route at a glance. The divine eye passed through the formation and entered the cave. The cave was quite large and had 3 stone rooms. In one of the stone rooms, there was a skeleton sitting, but inside the skull, there was a soul shaking. Seems to be looking at the monks outside the formation. The two of them looked at each other. If someone broke into this formation, they would be snatched away by the spirit immediately. Wanur, should we go and see? Mujukin sent a message. They came just to see the formation. As for whether there was anything in it, they didn't care. That group of souls, they won't mind their own business. In a ruined cave, if you want to get the treasure, you have to pay the price. There's no hurry, let's go around this mountain for a while. She wanted to see what was different about this place, which was the closest to the divine realm in the eyes of the world. Mujukin nodded, holding Yuan's hand and flying to the top of the mountain. There was no one on the top of the mountain. The two of them stood on the top of the mountain and overlooked the entire Wangshen mountain. The thunder immortal chi here is very strong, Yuan said. It's very rich, like it's coming from the mountain. Yuan glanced at the bottom of the mountain. There was no thunder immortal power at all under the mountain. She said, it's strange, there are no immortal veins under this mountain range. Mujukin was also confused. He had never seen anything like this before. He looked at the dragon-like mountain range and asked, is there something weird about this mountain? I don't know. Anyway, I know that those who are not from the thunder spirit root will be in bad luck here. Yuan shook his head. The thunder immortal chi here itself is rich. When the lightning strikes down, the power of thunder and lightning will be stronger. If you are not struck by it, it would be strange to kill him. I still want to become a god, but it's just a dream. Overcoming the tribulation of ascension is already difficult, but it is still difficult to make it more difficult on the original basis. It is strange that we can survive it. I wonder which idiot can tell that this place is closest to the god realm? There is actually a letter from an immortal. Don't they understand? Yuan was also drunk. End of this chapter. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. The Brave Life of a Space Peasant Girl. Author, Lan Department. Chapter 659. Chapter 659 Seizing the Body. The fairy world and the divine world are not on the same plane, so how can we talk about near and far? The two of them were talking and looking at the sacred mountain with their divine eyes. At the feet where they stood, a black thing was very nervous, for fear of being discovered. It was also Yuan and Mujukin who never looked down at their feet. Otherwise it would have been discovered earlier. The two of them looked at it for a while and didn't think anything was wrong. That is to say, the Lei Xian Qi became a little stronger, and they were ready to leave. Let's go, Yuan said. Okay, nothing unusual was found, so there is no need to waste time here. The two men immediately flew into the air and left. Just as the two of them flew away, the thing at the foot of the mountain breathed a heavy sigh of relief. Is it easy? It finally recovered its spirit. Don't let anyone discover it and destroy it again. Then what you have done these years is not in vain. Did you do it? At this moment, Yuan, who had flown away, subconsciously turned around and took a look, and she immediately stopped. Wanur, why did you stop? Mujukin stopped when he saw her flying, and turned around to look at Wangshen Mountain. If you feel something, don't make a fuss, and take a look, right under the highest mountain. Yuan said, looking carefully. In the middle of the mountain, there was a mass of black stuff, like a ball of briquettes, motionless. If you didn't pay attention, you would have thought it was a ball of sand and gravel, but Yuan felt a little bit of divine power in the mass. It is the power only possessed by gods. Yuan was suspicious, so she pulled Mujukan and flew back. Mujukan also discovered it. At the same time, the thing thought that everything was fine, but unexpectedly, Yuan and the two discovered it. In a hurry, it immediately got out and flew to the far east. The land in the far east is a mountain range that cannot be seen at a glance. Most of the people living on the other side of the mountain range are ordinary people who cannot practice. It is difficult for ordinary people who cannot cultivate to survive in the immortal world. Therefore, as long as the children born to immortals cannot cultivate, they are basically sent there. Yuan saw the thing flying away and immediately chased it. Mujukan, that is the soul of Tuan. Well, it's Wang Shenshen that's causing trouble. The two of them sensed the power of silk thunder in the soul. There is something else that the two of them don't understand. Wangshen Mountain was created by this thing. It used a little of its own divine power to attract powerful immortals. Generally, those who have cultivated to the level of immortal lord or immortal emperor can touch the slightest trace of divine power. So I mistakenly thought that this was the place closest to the god realm. So I came here to survive the catastrophe of ascension. The monk crossed the robbery, and to put it plainly, he touched the silk divine power and attracted the heavenly robbery. The natural disaster caused not only contains a trace of divine power, but also the power of thunder and lightning. That group of souls needs divine power and the power of thunder and lightning, as well as the souls of monks. It can obtain exactly these three things. Yuan and his wife travel around all walks of life and are well informed. This is the first time that they have restored their souls in this way. That's right, that group of souls was hiding here to recover from their injuries. There is no need to think about it, this divine soul is from the God realm, it just came here at some unknown time. Chase Yuan said, immediately turning on the aircraft. Mujukan nodded, turned on the aircraft, and the two of them chased the soul. Their movements alarmed the immortals on the mountain. Some people didn't know what they were chasing, and some people just wanted to watch the fun. No, they also chased after them. What are they chasing? Have no idea. Is it some kind of treasure? It's possible, let's go and have a look. Walk. People on the mountain followed him one after another. Yuan and the other two chased the group of spirits and were about to catch up. The spirit actually turned around and ran back. It's really cunning. Yuan's teeth itched with hatred. It was a real soul, not an immortal soul. It ran extremely fast. They couldn't catch up. They had to go back. If it wanted to take away the body, they would still. There's really no way to kill it. Boom. Yuan and Mujukan ignored it and used a fire magic. The soul ran desperately, looking at the immortals chasing after it. It used its strength fiercely and rushed into the sea of consciousness of the immortal who was chasing after it. Sure enough, it wants to seize the body. Yuan and the others' attacks failed, and they watched helplessly as it flew into the sea of consciousness of the immortal. The two of them had no choice but to follow the body of the immortal who was taken away and fly to the ground. There is no way, the speed of the soul is too fast. Mujukan also said regretfully, their speed was fast enough, but they were still one step behind the soul. As expected, people in the God realm are different. At the same time, the immortal who had been taken away from his body had fallen to the ground, as if he had fallen asleep. All the immortals who followed knew that a battle for possession of the body was going on in the immortal sea of consciousness. The immortals can only watch, and no one can help. Hey, can someone help me? Someone whispered. Go and help. That's when the soul enters his sea of consciousness. The immortal who spoke in a low voice immediately shut up, but he did not dare. The other immortals did not dare, but they all surrounded the immortal. Once the soul was successfully seized, They all took action to destroy him together. Yuan and Yuan also stood in the crowd and watched. Who doesn't know how dangerous it is to enter other people's sea of consciousness? If someone accidentally swallows the soul, the gain will outweigh the loss. How can outsiders do such a favor if they are not close relatives or very important people? It's not a fight. Fighting doesn't matter. Even if you are injured, it is still a physical injury. Just take a healing pill. No one dares to deal with the soul. Yuan looked at the immortal's body. It was still too late for her to help. Waner wants to help him, Mujukan sent a message. Yuan nodded. She was also very confused. This matter was caused by her. If she didn't go back to chase the soul would not want to seize the body, and this person would not suffer. If she saves him, he will expose the soul tree. If he doesn't save him, he will be devoured by the soul. The immortal just came to watch the fun, but unfortunately he suffered this disaster. Forget it, let's save her. Even if the soul tree is exposed, who can do anything to her? Mujukan, then help me protect the law. After Yuan finished speaking, she summoned the little snake Xiaoqing and asked the little snake to create a barrier. Since we have decided to save him, we will no longer hide what should be exposed. Ah, the 9th level immortal beast. Sure enough, when the two came out, they still shocked the onlookers. The onlookers immediately stepped back and retreated to a safe area. Yuan immediately sat down and her soul flew out, then flew into the sea of consciousness of the immortal. Ah, someone really went to save me. Someone was talking again. Hush, don't make a sound. That's right, it looks like those two people are protected by 9th level immortal beasts, so there shouldn't be any problem. Yes, a 9th level immortal beast, tisk tisk tisk, two more. Are you envious? Yeah, don't think too much, be careful about your life. End of this chapter. The Brave Life of a Space Peasant Girl. Author, Lan Department. Chapter 660. Chapter 660 Demonic Chi. In the Sea of Consciousness, sure enough, the Black Soul was chasing the Immortal's soul, and the Immortal's soul was already injured. The Black Soul saw Yuan coming in, and immediately released the soul and rushed towards Yuan. Humph! You really brought it to the door yourself. The soul really doesn't like the female fairy who discovered it. If it weren't for her, it would definitely be there. Until the soul fully recovers, it can go back to God. Boundary. After returning home, without a body, it is easy to take away one or rebuild the body. Now I have to take away a little immortal body and start practicing as an immortal. Not only is this extremely difficult, this body is not yet a Liligan. As we all know, people with Liligan are stronger than ordinary people in terms of strength and magic, and the thing they are least afraid of is surviving thunder tribulations. They are like the beloved children of heaven. They are not afraid of the fierceness of the thunder and calamity, but they are afraid that the thunder and calamity is not ferocious. When they overcome the calamity, the power of thunder and lightning is their great tonic. This is tragic. Not only is the thunder spirit root gone, but when he goes through the tribulation in the future, because his body was taken from a body, the thunder tribulation will be more ferocious than ordinary people. It hates this nosy fairy to death, so it will devour her first, and then the fairy. Anyway, he has already devoured 1/3 of the immortal. Even if he doesn't devour him now, he can't do anything. Shenhun thought, and immediately set up a barrier to cover the three of them, and then bit Yuan fiercely. When Yuan saw it, she just smiled contemptuously. She didn't even set up a barrier, but the spirit put one up first. Just in time, she saved it. Seeing the soul rushing toward her ferociously, her consciousness moved, and the soul tree appeared in her hand. The soul tree is now a sacred tree. As soon as it comes out, it smells the sweet divine soul power and can't wait to chase the divine soul. Ah, the soul tree. Suddenly, the soul felt something that frightened it. It looked at it intently. "Oh my God, the soul tree!" it screamed and ran away in fright. It had suffered 8 lifetimes of bad luck before encountering this murderous star. I thought it was someone who came to my door, but I didn't expect that this little fairy could be so capable of doing harm. No wonder she was so fearless. It's been a matter of working as a soul for too long, and even the most basic things have been forgotten. Without anyone to rely on, people will rush to death. But the man will not die, but he is going to die. How to solve this dead situation? Please fairy, please forgive me, please fairy, please forgive me. The soul didn't care anymore. It was important to save its life, so it shouted at the top of its lungs. Little soul, stop it. After hearing this, Yuan asked the soul tree to stop catching the soul. It didn't matter if she just listened to what it said. Then tell me why you want me to spare your life? You have swallowed the souls of so many people. I don't believe that the souls you swallowed did not let you spare your life. Yuan stared at the soul and said, This God. Shenhun racked her brains to think of ways to get Yuan to spare its life. But it couldn't continue after saying a few words. It had devoured so many souls, enough to kill it thousands of times. There is really no reason for Yuan to spare its life. Yuan looked at it, knowing that it was just delaying time. She said impatiently, swallow it, little soul. No, fairy, spare your life. When Shenhun heard this, he was so frightened that he immediately shouted again. Then his consciousness moved, and several things floated around him. Please don't kill me, fairy. I will give you all these artifacts. Please spare my life, fairy. I will never do these things again in the future. The soul quickly bowed and begged for mercy, living as long as it could, but if it couldn't, it could still enter the underworld, and it could also cultivate and ascend to the divine realm. If it is swallowed by the soul tree, it will really disappear between heaven and earth. Yuan looked at the artifacts and was not moved at all. She had many artifacts. How did you, a soul from the divine world, end up in the fairy world? Yuan felt a little strange. According to theory, when a person dies, he either goes to the underworld, or recultivates the body, or does not use the body. Of course, the body can also be taken. Shenhun was stunned when she heard Yuan's words. How did she know that it was the world of gods? Just thinking about its fall, its body trembled a few times. Shenhun trembled as he spoke. If he didn't say it, his life would be lost immediately. He was afraid that compared with his death, it would be nothing. It said, the fairy didn't know something. Back then, I was looking for the magic medicine in a secret realm, and accidentally came across a sealed demon soul. I didn't know it was a demon soul at the time, and thought it was some kind of treasure. So I broke the seal. Unexpectedly, as soon as the seal was broken a little, I would be entangled by the overflowing demonic energy. I had to lose my body and escape quickly. The demonic energy actually caught up with me. I had no choice but to use secret techniques to tear apart the secret realm and escape. But at that time, my soul was also contaminated with demonic energy and was seriously injured. When I fell out of the secret realm, I didn't know why I ended up here. The fairy should have guessed what happened next. In order to restore his soul, he came up with this method. First of all, tribulation thunder is also the nemesis of demonic energy, and secondly, I also need the power of devouring the soul and thunder. You are the of thunder, why don't you use the power of thunder to attack the demonic energy? Yuan couldn't help but ask. The of thunder is the nemesis of the demonic energy. Shenhun said, that demonic energy is too terrifying. How can a little be its opponent? Yuan felt a chill in her heart after hearing this. This reminded her of the filthy atmosphere in the secret realm of the Eastern royal family. Even her father couldn't get rid of it. Here comes another demonic spirit. The seal of the demon soul was slightly broken by this divine soul, So that's not bad. Yuan felt disgusted when she looked at the culprit. She originally wanted to swallow the soul tree, but now she can only keep him temporarily. You needed to find the secret place. However, it has to be said that the soul was quite unlucky. He failed in his treasure hunt and ended up dead. Thinking again that it had swallowed so many souls, I wanted to let the soul tree swallow him immediately. Yuan looked at its trembling expression, then glanced at the immortal soul huddled in the barrier, and said to him, "What you saw and heard today can't be told outside. After you go back, take care of it slowly." The immortal soul felt like he was being pardoned, and he knelt down to express his thanks, completely ignoring that his cultivation level was higher than Yuan's. "The fairy's great kindness in saving lives is unforgettable. How dare you talk nonsense? How dare he?" He heard the conversation between the two clearly. The souls from the god realm were afraid of the soul tree, and he was even more afraid. "If you want to survive, you must control your mouth." Yuan nodded, and then put the soul and soul tree into the space. The soul was left to Arthur. After breaking the barrier, she emerged from the sea of consciousness of the immortal, and her soul returned to her true body. "How is it? Is Wanner okay?" Although he was not worried about Yuan, Mujukan was still worried. Yuan opened her eyes and shook her head. Let's go back to space and talk about it. This matter needs to be told to her father." Mujukan nodded. Yuan's consciousness moved and she returned to the space with her spiritual pet and Mujukan. The little snake withdrew the barrier at the same time. End of this chapter.